Right. So yes, so I want to say hello. Thank you so much for agreeing for us to talk to you. I thought maybe we could start, if I can share the screen. It's the gospel reading for the Sunday. So I really wanted to chat to you, but also it's in the context of this gospel reading, the Sunday's reading. Yeah. So this, if I have got it right, yes, this is the reading. So I'll just read it out. It's from Matthew 14. Jesus withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. When the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them and cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the crowds. And all ate and were filled. And they took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets in full. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. So, and I think when I was preparing it, the thing that really struck me was Jesus. Why was he withdrawing? And it was because he just heard about John the Baptist. And of course, you know, we have that story of Mary and Elizabeth and how close they were when they were both pregnant. And so you know that their ages are quite close, and they've obviously probably grown up together, knew each other so well. And then this horrible thing where John the Baptist is beheaded, and Jesus hears about this and quite naturally just wants to get away from it all. And then, of course, ends up ministering in this great Eucharistic communion. And it made me think about Jesus and his ministry and how he pours himself out. And he was always there, you know, and he was so in tune with his Father and knowing what to do. And then that made me think of you two as well. Yeah. Mainly because of your amazing story that's still unfolding. So I thought it would be really nice to hear your story and think of the passage in the light of how we do pour ourselves out for God and what that means and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you could probably just start with who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. I'm Matthew, and this is my wife Karen. My parents are Austin and Mary Reilly, which are part of the community at St John's. At this moment in time, we're actually sitting in Mum and Dad's front room because we're living with them temporarily. Because at the moment we're on our way to serve with SIM, serving a mission in Malawi. We were hoping to have gone in April, but COVID intervened, and so we're still here at the moment. We're going to work in Blantyre in the southern part of Malawi. I'm going to be teaching in a Bible college. Karen's going to be looking at opportunities in community development, women's discipleship, things like that. So that's roughly what we're going to do as soon as the Lord makes a way for us to get there.
And it's not you two, you've got kids as well, yes?
Yeah, so we've got 2 young kids. So Jacob, who recently turned 8, and Sophie, who's 5.
Right.
So yeah, we're very excited, and they've known about us going to Malawi for about 1.5 years now. So yeah, they're keen to get out there as well.
And it sounds all very done and dusted. It sounds, almost as though they phoned you up and you have contracts and everything, but it wasn't like, I take it wasn't like that.
No, I mean, it could sound like that hearing about it at this point. I would say it's been a process over quite a few years of beginning to think, is this something that we could do? So it wasn't some big kind of supernatural, right, you're going to go to Africa. It was more, actually, are we willing to serve God anywhere? That's the kind of first question. And then when you answer that and say, yeah, we're willing, it's then a much longer process. So with that missionary organisation that Matthew mentioned, Serving in Mission have quite a lengthy application process. And it's rightly so, because they want to make sure at each step of the way that this is definitely the right fit for us. So that includes filling in application forms and interviews, and even being tested with a psychologist to check on how you cope in difficult scenarios. And each step of the way, we always just said, are we willing? Are we still willing? And really, when you get through all of that and they say, you're now approved and you're now accepted as missionaries with SIM, then we were like, okay, that's as much confirmation as you need, because so many different people have fed into that process. It's not just one opinion.
Yeah.
And I suppose there's that sense of community, isn't there? That, yeah. Because I think sometimes, when you read the Bible, sometimes it's you forget that it is, that gospel passage ends up with community.
Yeah.
From a loneliness almost.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really interesting idea, that you journey alongside people and with people. Although you have sold everything at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah, we're now at the point where we've definitely had people journeying along with us, and very much our local church in Edinburgh has been part of that. That's been really, really key to us. But we did have to get to a point where we said, okay, we're now going to sell our house, or we're not going to sell a house, we're going to rent it out, but we're going to move out and we're going to sell our belongings in the house. And at that point, that's where it really starts to feel real, because you're kind of putting into action what you've been saying with words. So we did that at the beginning of this year. And now we wait.
Yeah.
And how did you explain it to the kids?
Well, we've been talking about this for a long. I mean, the process with SIM, I think we're 5-6 years along the line with them since the first time we met the UK director at a friend's wedding back at the beginning of 2015. And then, over the years we've been doing different things and, meeting different people and having different discussions, and the children just sort of witnessed a lot of this. And then a couple of years ago, we actually went down to SIM HQ to do an orientation. We were sort of 3/4 of the way through the process at that point in time, just having lots, so we could sit in a room with a few people and discuss, what it's like to be on the field, what are all the tensions, what are the great things, what's the encouragement, get a real understanding of the biblical basis of what we're doing. But at the same time, there was a whole program for the kids. And we were really blessed, actually, that there wasn't a huge number of people on the orientation week with us. So it was our kids and another family's kids. And the children's coordinator for SIM just walked them through for a week, just, going to different places, exploring different things about different countries. And I think that's when the kids really had this awareness, actually, that this might be something that we might go and live in Africa. We were speaking just generally Africa at that point in time. And then just gradually, so that was just over 2 years ago, and then gradually over the last couple of years, it's got a bit more specific, saying, well, actually now we're accepted with SIM, and then we're talking about a couple of different places, and here's the different places we're talking about, and this is what they're like, and this is the kind of place we might live. And then just gradually walking with them through that process to now, actually, we're going to live in Blantyre. There's a house waiting for us. Here's the house we hope that we'll be living in when we get there, and here's the school we hope you get to. And it's been such a natural part of their life, walking with us for a couple of years on this, and that they are very accepting, and really they just want to get there. They're desperate to go.
Well, that must be the really hard bit now, that you're all in this waiting, this holding pattern.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that? Has it changed your faith? Has it changed your relationships?
I think with any season that anybody can be in, where they're expecting something to happen and it doesn't happen yet, it's remembering why we got to that point in the first place. So for us, it's really helpful remembering all those stages of the application process. It's helpful to remember why we moved out of our house and sold our belongings. Because I think as soon as you lose sight of that, then you just get caught up in the kind of immediacy of what are we doing. So I think for anybody who's waiting for something, in the same way that you're expecting a baby, you do all this preparation, then you just wait. You can't determine when the baby will come, they will come. And so we have to just trust God's timing, and we continue to do that even when the kids keep asking, when are we going? And we can't answer that question. You just continue to
I'm
wait.
smiling because I remember saying to me when I was pregnant the first time, they're saying, now make the most of this because you'll never have this time again.
Exactly. And we don't want
never think.
yeah, that's right.
And I think that's the same, going through lockdown and the COVID-19, is that actually this is a season that it's very unlikely we're ever going to experience again, and think of, okay, what's the benefit of it? And actually we have spent a lot of time together as a four, and effectively building our sustainability as a nuclear family, if you like, and knowing that when we get to the field, everything's going to be unfamiliar. Yes, there's people ready to welcome us, but the thing that is going to be familiar for us is each other, and that's been a good part of lockdown. But obviously, lockdown's not been easy for anyone, schooling at home and doing all these things and not being able to see friends and family is difficult and has been difficult. But we've got through it, and we're thankful for the grace of God for helping us through it.
Yeah, we've been going through Genesis the past few weeks, and last week, in fact, last night at our Zoom home group, we were talking about Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Yes.
And limping away at the end, and just those and the story of Abraham and following it through. It's really interesting at this time when we're kind of doing a wrestling as well, because we don't quite know what the future looks like.
Absolutely.
You said something about Abraham was a story that really.
Yeah, the story of Abraham's always stood out for me over the last 10 years or so. Actually, when we first felt that actually we should answer the question, are we willing to go, was after hearing a guy called Simon Gillibo speaking at Clan Gathering about 9 years ago now, and he spoke about Abraham. And since then, and through my studies at Bible College myself, just the story of Abraham's kind of resonated with me. And that it's very simple what God asks and God says to Abraham in Genesis 12. And it really is very clear that there's three things that happen for me. If God calls him, it's God that's calling. So you've got to pay attention. And then God is saying he's going to equip him. He is going to make him great, make his name great. He is going to make that he has this family that progresses for generations and generations, that's going to end up with the promise of the Messiah. And God says he is going to do the blessing through this. It's not Abraham that's going to do it. It's going to be the work of God. And it's always spoken to me that, we believe that God has called us to the work in Africa. We believe, and we still believe that, even though we're not there yet, and it's been a very long time. So we hold fast to that belief that it's God that has worked in our lives. It's not anything we've done. It's what God has done in our lives that's brought us to this point. And, and he's equipped us along the lines. He's given us a family together. He's given us friends. He's given us people around us, a church, but also the skills and the knowledge and the experiences we've had up until now will feed into that. But all of that is God given as well. And also knowing that when we go and do the work, it is his work. It's not our work. And so to hold lightly to what we want to do and actually say, well, what we've always said is we want to go and serve the Lord. That's what we want to do. And we want him to show us when we get there, this is precisely what you're going to do. Now we go with, I'm going to go and teach in a Bible college, and say we could do these things, but actually our foremost desire is just to be available to God in that context.
Yeah. And I'm going to it sounds very motherly, So, but I know for myself, and I know for we follow Jesus, who poured himself out. This kenosis, and poured himself out even to death on a cross. How do and I ask for myself as well. I'm about to go on I'm off from tomorrow for a week, but I know how all consuming it is, and how it becomes your life. How do we avoid burnout as well? Because I read that passage and I see the human Jesus, who must have been in such an emotional state. He's trying to get away from everyone, and they just follow him, and he ends up ministering to them again. And I think, what does that mean for my life and what I should be doing? And
I think you're absolutely right, Rosie. I think ministry is unique. It's not like any other regular job, and so you do give of your time and your energy and who you are to other people in a way that's not quite the same in other jobs. And I think the other side of it is, as Christians, we want to be like Jesus, but we're not Jesus. So we're human. And so although we want to love people as he loved people and care for them and listen and give of our time, we're not superhuman, and anyone in ministry has to remember that. And I think you do sometimes hear stories of people who burn out because they almost think they are superhuman and they think they can do it all, and physically and emotionally they just can't. So I grew up in a minister's family. My dad was a church minister, so I understand a little bit of what that looks like in a home life. But I also feel like in the church family that we're in Edinburgh, we've just seen lots of examples of where it's wise to take breaks, to have rest, to withdraw as a family or a couple or on your own, and spend time particularly with the Lord, reading our Bibles and being replenished so that we can then give out to others again. And sometimes we'll get that right and sometimes we won't, and it's that constant learning curve.
And while you were talking, it just came to me, I just wondered, when Jesus sees the crowd and he has compassion on them, and then there is this miracle that happens, I wonder how much he got back as well as giving out.
Yeah.
Because it is energizing as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's a blessing that the Lord gives us. I don't think it's necessarily something that we want to seek out, where you give to others and think, well, what can I get back from it? But I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. Of course, because God is a giving God and he's very gracious, and he wants us to serve him wherever we are, whatever situation we're in.
It's usually in the bits that we don't expect, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it comes down to what's in your heart rather than, not everybody's going to move overseas, rightly so. But even in the situation where you are in Edinburgh, it's about our heart motivation for why we serve people. If we just do it out of some duty or loyalty to people, you're going to burn out quick because you don't have that same motivation.
Yeah. Go on, Matthew, you look like you wanted to say.
Well, there's just two things that came to mind here. First of all, what Karen was saying is we just have to know our limitations ultimately. And Karen was saying that we're not Christ, and therefore, while we are called to walk in Christ-likeness, to be imitators of God, we are not him, and therefore we should be aware as humans of what our limitations are. So, that's what I was thinking. But I also was just thinking there as well is to serve God is a blessing in itself, in whatever way it is. Whether that's a small way, just in our homes with our families, or in our churches in small ways, is just a blessing to know that you're walking in his will and serving him. Or that can be in bigger scales. Like, while we were away recently, I was reading a biography of Hudson Taylor, and he had a really hard life, but actually he had great joy all the way through it, knowing that he was walking in what God had called him to. And it was just, that real blessing of just serving God in his time and in our time, and whatever God calls us to, and calls any of us to, and to work for him, to serve him.
Yes, I was saying last night, it took me 10 years of being dragged to get ordained, because there were many reasons why I did not want to get ordained, and yet there's been a freedom in that that I could never have described before. And there's something about being in the right place. You kind of know if God's asking you to do something, and it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then if you're doing the right thing at the right time in the right place, whatever that is, there's a freedom in that.
Absolutely.
So of course I'm going to ask you, what can we do to support you?
That's very kind to ask that question. I think certainly praying for us, and that we continue to remember why, you know, we're moving, and we don't lose sight of that, because day-to-day life, it is hard to keep that perspective. So certainly that we just keep being committed to the Lord in what we do day to day, and as we wait for the timing to go, and yeah, just praying for our wider families and friends and those around us, that they will continue also to kind of understand because it's not just like we decided, oh, we're going to move to Africa, you know, it's been a long process. Just keeping sight of that.
Yeah. Also, just ask people to pray for Malawi at this time. They are a good bit behind us in the curve of COVID-19, and its cases are increasing rapidly. So just pray for them. Pray for that the government would act wisely, that people would be really aware of what the precautions to take, etc. Things like that. But also for us as well, just to pray. We've got the rest of our financial support to raise. We're nearly there.
I saw that 85% was.
Yeah, something 85, about 85%. It's hard to measure it exactly, because until we know precisely when we can go. So we're really close, and we're so thankful to God and to those who've supported us so far. So if people could continue to pray for that as well. And if anyone would like to financially support us, you just follow the link, go to the SIM website, and when it asks what you would like to support, you say Matthew and Karen Reilly. It's as simple as that.
Very helpfully, your name is up on the
Yes.
screen all the time. I love Zoom.
Yes, brilliant.
I'm so bad at people's names. It's so nice that when you can see it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's
You're welcome.
And we will remember to support your mum and dad as well, Matthew.
Yes, we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I'm going to press stop recording now.